Good morning, people. The time has arrived. It's Monday, the 20th of September, and it's just after the hour of 8 o'clock. And big year in the academic calendar. This is induction week. Happy and joyous returning students and happy and joyous new students. Fabulous. It's always an exciting time of the year, really. It's really good. So I have to go into work. I have to actually drive into the office. What's that all about? Today and tomorrow, and then most days. Well, and then at least one day of the week for the rest of the term. Anyway, there you go. See how that goes. It'll be fine. Be good to see everybody. We saw everybody last week at a kind of training team building event, which is very good. Very good to see everybody. And one of the things that I get tasked with doing, which is a delight at this point and in the early part of the year, particularly with the first year students, is talking to them about self-care and productivity. Well, as you can imagine, it's right up my street, isn't it? Right up my street. So obviously I've been having a bit of a dig about, just because it's normally I'm talking to, I suppose mostly these days I'm talking to practitioners about this. So I'm having a look. I'm having a look to see kind of what I can tell students that's about students particularly, and a few things. Kind of, it's one of those kind of moments where everything kind of aligns. So I opened the paper this morning. Well, I opened the Guardian app on my phone anyway. It's the equivalent of opening the paper these days. I opened the paper this morning, and there's an article about somebody interviewing Bessel van der Kolk, and Bessel van der Kolk wrote a book called The Body Keeps the Score. And today I'm talking to the first year students about the physical aspects of self-care and how those physical aspects promote productivity and well-being and all manner of things. And there it was this morning. Talk about by chance, or maybe it's designed so he sells more books. I don't know. There by chance, I've got Bessel van der Kolk being interviewed by Body Keeps the Score. Published, I think it said 2014. I read it. Well, I read most of it. Probably 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. So probably not long after it was released. And it's really what he says is really interesting, because he's a psychiatrist, Danish, I believe, and practiced in America. He was an academic and then moved into his own practice after a tricky situation that ended up not being what it appeared to be. I'll let you read about that. And he says the body keeps the score. And what he says is that physical things, he particularly talks about yoga, release this stored stress in our muscles. So when you're stressed, and it all makes sense to me. With it all links to other stuff. I'm making the connections, but your body becomes toxic as a consequence of the adrenaline and cortisol, this stress response that we have. Initiates, floods our body with these chemicals, and when you are constantly stressed, even at a relatively low level, I suppose, but constantly stressed, and I think the world today stresses us. Never mind the world of work. I think we're caught up in a stress shitstorm, to be fair, and so we've got this constant level of stress that we experienced many years ago. Because of the way technology works, because of the way we're asked to work, we've got these things going on that our physical bodies don't quite understand, because we're not designed for them. So anyway, so that we have this stress response all the time, and van der Kolk's thesis is that this stress isn't just about our psychiatric health. The stress gets stored in our physical bodies, and that when people do yoga, again, he talks about yoga particularly, but all exercise is good in my book. Exercise is good because it burns off a lot stored up stress, and that the stressful events can then come to mind, and often we can kind of try and examine and understand them when this is going on. It's quite interesting. Very interesting idea. So you know, it's fortuitous that I read that this morning, but I think it's really true. I think if I'm feeling particularly stressed, um, you know, having a run or going for a walk or whatever is really helpful. So there's lots of evidence that's the case. And I'll be talking about sleep. Let's do the full gambit. I'll be talking about sleep. So I was looking for some particular examples about students, but I mean this one's really good for all of us, really. So Matthew Walker, who is my go-to researcher on sleep, because I think he's fab, and he says some really insightful and interesting things. He he did an experiment, did a study. I shouldn't call them experiments, really, should I? Oh, I'm going to experiment on you. He did a study where they got a group of students and deprived them of sleep for one night, and then tested their ability to remember new facts. But they didn't test them just the next day because that would have seemed a little unfair. Because if you test them the next day, well, of course they're going to be tired, etc. So they tested them 2 days later after they'd had time allegedly to catch up on sleep, and they weren't as able to. I can't remember that. I've made notes about the actual numbers. I think it was 40%. They were 40% less able to remember stuff, remember facts, and there was, when trying to learn, there was reduced activity in their hippocampus. Now, the hippocampus is the thinking part of your brain. It's the part of your brain that does all this kind of stuff. So, 2 days after the sleep deprived night, it was still having an impact on their ability, on their hippocampus to function adequately in terms of remembering. So sleep is so important, and in fact, often I talk to people about all manner of things, and often, and I talk about, when I'm doing sessions, I talk about kind of small steps over a long period of time, and people will say, well, what's the first step I should take? And I always say, if your sleep's not right, sort your sleep out first. And if you get that sorted, then it'll help all the other areas. And obviously, now that I read that bit of research, it's kind of obvious, really. It was hidden in there in what I say, I suppose, when I think about my notes on this, that I utilise when I'm talking. It was hidden in there, but that your hippocampus is is undermining your ability to learn, or behave in a particular way, or be rational or whatever, because the thinking part of your brain has been compromised by the lack of sleep. And I suppose in some ways it's obvious, isn't it? Because you know that when you are tired, you can't think straight. But here's the evidence that actually, even days after a problematic sleep night, you are still experiencing that. So imagine if you're not sleeping well routinely, maybe, you know, maybe every night for some people. I suppose 1 in 3 of us aren't getting enough sleep. Maybe it's every night. He also talks in his book about the importance of the kind of different types of sleep we experience. You know, so it has to be sleep across the whole night from 10:30 to 6:30 or thereabouts is what he suggests. So really important. So anyway, I'm looking forward to greeting the new students. Get your yoga on, because yoga is going to release all of that pent up stress in your muscles. Get your yoga on, and have good weeks. And as is my drive at the moment, I'm going to check in with you on Wednesday. That'll be exciting for you. Well, hey, okay, see you soon. Take care.